All right, good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It is Monday, January 12th, a little after 6 p.m. I was going to ask if you had any questions, but I'll wait and probably ask Barb to do a recap for us since she did such a wonderful job yesterday. And then we'll see if we have any questions, okay? But first, I'm going to ask Pastor if he has anything before we go there.
It'd probably be a part of Barbara's discussion.
Okay. Barb, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Good evening, gods and goddesses, kings and queens, and you deities.
Good evening.
Um, Thank you again for the opportunity. Yesterday we talked about the spiritual origin of depression, and there were a couple of things we talked about, and I am grateful that all of you participated when we outlined those things that we usually think of when we think about depression, like finances might cause us to get to fall, as Don said, fall into depression, heavy, that it's described as a heaviness, a darkness, something, a defeated feeling, sadness, loneliness, isolation, difficulty concentrating, uh, feelings of unworthiness, fatigue, low energy, feelings of being just broken, mood changes, things like that. So thank you very much for that. What we talked about yesterday, from the spiritual perspective, after describing all of these things that we usually think about, is that the depression was more than just was not just a chemical imbalance or diagnosis, mental health diagnosis. That it was a soul level signal that something is misaligned, suppressed, or forgotten. And we know any of those could relate to us because we've forgotten who we are, the essence of who we truly are, and we are now awakening to that fact. Depression invites the soul to awaken by confronting what the mind has buried. Spiritual origin of depression looks at several things. We looked at several things. There was something else I thought about too. When we talk about depression inviting the soul to awaken by confronting what the mind has buried, if we don't do that, then the depression is a matrix trying to isolate you from you. If we don't allow it to open us up to questions of who we really are, it continues then as part of the matrix, part of physicality that's designed to try to isolate or separate the small you of us from the big you of our spiritual being. If that resonates. So origins relate to disconnection from the soul purpose, from what the person is supposed to be doing, sharing love, sharing mercy, sharing loving kindness. We know that there's something more. We feel a lack because we know there's something more that we should be doing. So something sacred that we should be doing. And so this disconnection from soul purpose happens because being the deity that we are, we understand we were not walking in that fullness, even though we can't necessarily name what it is that prevents us from doing that. Another spiritual origin of depression is our emotions are depressed from past life emotion, depressed emotions from past life, or past life grief. In other words, there's some things that happen that we've not really come to grips with, if you will, or resolved, if you will, from a spiritual perspective. And so the energy of depression then is that unprocessed sadness. The energy of depression can be that unprocessed grief, that unprocessed rage, that unprocessed trauma. Not just from this lifetime, but from other lifetimes as well. Another origin could be from soul fatigue and earth density. It's difficult once you're aware of who you are. It's a little bit more difficult to feeling the weight of this physicality when we understand who we are, and when we understand we are light beings. And that's totally different from a dense physical being that we are. So there are souls that get fatigued and they become depressed because of the harshness of this density and the collective amnesia of not remembering who they are, or not understanding the fullness of who they are, that makes it painful. So it can be a sign of exhaustion of the soul. Another origin could be karmic pattern breaking. In other words, there are things that we have done that we've done perhaps in our past, performative kinds of things. I think Pastor mentioned this yesterday. Trying to perform, trying to fulfill roles that we allow to define who we are, rather than the essence of being a deity, being Elohim, defining who we are. We allow our roles to do that. We allow our jobs to do that. We allow our families to do that. We allow any external kind of entity to define who we are. And when we do that, we just maintain that survival mode. And depression can be a way of trying to break out of that pattern, that karmic pattern of our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions from this life and past life, and from what other people tell us and other entities show us, breaking apart, getting out of that, letting it go, breaking through that karmic pattern breaking. So when we do this, when these identities that have been created for us crumble, then depression enters, and it can be seen at that point as a space for rebirth if we allow it to be. So we talked a little bit about what depression was trying to teach us. Trying to teach us to slow down and to listen. It forces us to be still. It forces us to confront our emotions. It teaches us to feel instead of flee. To confront those things that are trying to hold us down, that make us feel heavy, that make us feel sad, that make us feel unworthy. It's a mirror for us if we allow it to be. And the way that we deal with this is that we confront those emotions, and then instead of being afraid of them, we just offer them love. Because understand duality. All of these, everything is in this earth realm, in this earth consciousness, in this physicality, it is polar. The polarity is the dual polarity. And so there are things that occur that we might think we want to occur, but there are things that happen to us that we might think we don't want to happen. The point is, regardless of whether we want it or not, when we understand who we are, whatever the lesson is, we can pull the lesson out of that and understand, okay, what is this teaching me? And that's what slowing down and listening does. And that's what embracing those emotions and those feelings can do. When we embrace it and say, yeah, this is a part of me too. Dag nabbit, this is a part of me too. And I love it because I was created in love. I am love. And so when you embrace that and you love that part of yourself, it kind of breaks open that depressive kind of a feeling as well. And so we tend not to flee then. We tend to embrace and offer that love. I'm just about through. Another way that another thing depression is trying to teach us is to awaken that inner child in us, that curious child in us, that child that's questioning, that child that loves, that child that understands what truth is. So depression is trying to teach us to reconnect with the innocence of a child. You know, the Bible talks about unless you come as a little child, blah blah blah. It's trying to teach us to connect with that childlike being, which is part of who we are as well. It teaches us to stop betraying ourselves. It teaches us to break that mold of living in the roles again that have been given to us, living in the careers that have been given to us, and defining ourselves by those things, or living in relationships that dishonor our souls, that dishonor who we are. Depression is that truth teller. It says to us, this is not who you are. We've said this so many times as we've had discussions on Zoom. There's something in us that says, you're more than this. There's more to this than this. This is not who you are. Depression is not who you are. Talk to yourself and tell yourself, this is not who I am. So how do you overcome it? One of the ways is talk to yourself. Talk to your soul. Remind yourself of who you are. You can journal. You can meditate. You can get out in nature and because a depression kind tries to disassociate you and from everything around you. Get out in nature, feel the sun, feel the trees, feel the grass. Even if you don't feel the depressive feeling lifting yet, sometimes just doing this kind of helps to break that cycle. Because the memory in your cells, in your spiritual cells, remind you that you are one with everything. So even if you don't feel any different yet, those are things that you can force yourself to do. And even if you don't want to be with anybody else, you can be in nature and be with nature. That can be a first step in helping you to spiritually overcome depression. Honor your grief rituals. Whatever holds you, whatever flood of grievance you've held. If it's grievance because somebody did you wrong, or if you lost a job that you felt was very important to you, or if you lost a relationship, or you lost a parent, a sibling, or a loved one, whatever that grief is that's holding you, honor that, embrace that. That's a part of who you are. And then allow it, give it love, and allow it the freedom to be. Because that's a part of who you are. You can light candles, you can cry intentionally, whatever it takes, but honor that grief ritual so that if you don't continue to hold that grief, and that grief continues to hold you. Call on your guides. Ask your higher self, or your ancestors, or your angels. Help me remember who I am. Help me feel safe enough to feel again. You are never alone in your healing. Never, ever, ever, never. So, in summary, I said that depression was not a flaw. And someone really needs to hear that. Depression is not a flaw. It's a sacred invitation to feel, to remember, to awaken. The soul knocking on your door, knocking on the door of that numb feeling, knocking on the door of that grief, that rage, whatever it is that causes that feeling of depression. And it's saying, I'm still here. The soul is knocking, saying, let me in. You don't need to rush it. Depression is not the end. It's the space between what was and what will be. So while you're in the spiritual cocoon, it's a spiritual cocoon that allows you to grow before your next becoming. Comments or questions?
I don't have a question. However, I do want to make a comment about depression as well as suicide and how you mentioned how depression gives us the space to remember who we are. I have been shown a way and to teach yourself or to bring yourself to a place of remembrance of who you were created to be. And I also will speak to a question that someone sent me later on, of course. And that question was about the way we feel about the Bible. How do we live our lives in terms of knowing what's right and wrong? All of that is, I think, is intertwined in walking as you were created to walk, thinking and speaking as you were created to think and to speak. At some point, either during the course of this or at the end of it, or Saturday, I don't know. But at some point, I do believe it's necessary to introduce that because in the next 3 months, we are in for one hell of a ride between now and May, maybe. Yeah, the 4th month, yeah. We're in for one hell of a ride. So it's going to be important that we have an understanding of how to be who we are as opposed to just saying it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for that too, because as a reminder, what you're going to show us is how to be who we are. We don't have to succumb to depression. Do that. But for those of us who have those periods where we succumb to depression, there's an opportunity to grow even within that, is what I've been saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
I might be
Are there
talking out of line. Or go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I'm like I said, I might be talking out of line, or I don't know, but I'm just gonna put this out there, and y'all help me, please. How can your humanity let go and be spiritual or be like our ancestors? How do our humanity let go and be what God have made us to be?
That's what I'm going to talk about later on, Charles.
Okay, I definitely want to know.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the question.
Any other observations from yesterday's lesson, or any? I guess we could have asked for any other questions beforehand.
Honestly, I believe based upon the responses that I've gotten from yesterday, we are waiting with bated breath for you to Yep, will cross the ceiling to suicide.
Well, please take a deep breath.
Yes,
I don't want
we
you
are.
shallow breathing. I don't want you breathing shallowly. Take a deep breath. And thanks to those of you who shared comments with me as well. I appreciate it. So let's talk about that then. What happens spiritually when a person takes their own life? According to the Akashic record, the event of a soul taking its own life is not met with punishment. Again, I'd like for you to listen to this and not process it the way we would process it in our minds. I would ask that you allow it to resonate one way or the other. And when resonating, you'll feel it or you won't. And if you don't feel it, don't worry about it. Don't lose sleep over it. At its appointed time, whatever is for you will resonate. And I trust that. So when someone takes their own life, it is not met with punishment. I really should have asked you all to do something very similar to what we did yesterday, and asked you to share with us and with everybody on the line comments you've heard in the past or thoughts you've heard in the past about what people say about suicide and how they see suicide and how they see that person who takes their own life. Can we spend about 3 minutes doing that? Not spiritual, guys. I don't want you to go there spiritual. I just want you to talk about what you've heard in the past and what you understand some people to believe. That's all I'm asking you.
I've heard that it's a sin and it's unforgivable because you don't have time to ask for forgiveness. You don't
Okay.
you don't give yourself opportunity because it's the last thing that you do. Uh, I especially coming from the church, Christianity
Mm-hmm.
really frowns
Mm-hmm.
and beats that up, that this person is doomed to hell because of what they did. Those are some of the
Thank
things
you.
I encountered. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Same thing, that it's the only sin you can't be forgiven for.
Oh, it's a sin that cannot be forgiven, huh? Okay. Thank you.
That you have little faith.
That's the major one we have.
Say again. Little faith. And what else, Pastor?
That I think what Ron said and Keita agreed with. That's the
Mm-hmm.
primary thing that all of us were taught in church, especially I know for a fact in the Baptist church. Um, the
Thank you.
the Jews believe that you should be buried in an unmarked grave because you fulfilled
Mm-hmm.
your privilege to
Mm-hmm.
live in the other world.
Wow. What baggage. What baggage. Contrary to,
The other thing people basically teach is that you're going straight to hell.
Yeah.
well, when you say straight to hell, it's as if you bypassing something, something else.
Let's go.
Going straight to hell.
Purgatory or whatever. Bypass it all.
Okay. Taking
Well,
the freeway.
can I say, well, I know when I was in the Marines, in the military, I don't know, not, as far as what they said, as far as in the afterlife, they did say you were going to hell, but I remember we had a guy who attempted to commit suicide when I was in boot camp in the Marines, and they caught him before he could do it. And they had a talk with us, and
and this kind of gives you a glimpse of how messed up it is. They made it seem like he was the weakest individual, lowest life form. Like he was so weak, he didn't have. And I'm like, is this supposed to make him feel like he doesn't want to commit suicide again, or is this
Yeah,
to make him feel worse? And they made him feel like he was the lowest person. And I've always remembered that. And like as a person who's dealt with depression, I've always felt like, okay, if I do want to try to hurt myself, God, you are like so doggone weak. Like just get a hold of yourself. Like even though it didn't get any better, like you should just sit here and suffer in this. Like just suffer in this because if you do something to yourself, you are like the weakest person ever. And that's just how they made it seem.
Gotcha, man. If you weren't depressed before, we heap it on each other, don't we?
Yeah, you felt you were really depressed after that.
So thank you for sharing. Let's move in. Let's go on then. Let's talk about this. We've already said a soul who's taken their own life is not met with punishment, condemnation, or rejection from the divine. No punishment, no condemnation, definitely not rejection from the divine. Instead, it's understood that this is a moment of overwhelmed consciousness, a collapse of emotional capacity. It's a soul calling for release from a vibration it could not contain in the current body it's in. And we've been talking about vibrations and frequencies, and sometimes those things can be so desolate, meaning it's like like fingernails down a chalkboard, things that we feel that feel so oppressive, that feel that they're just weighing on us. All the things we talked about yesterday with the sadness, et cetera, that a soul who takes their own life is at the point where they're overwhelmed. And they need a release from that vibration because their body could not hold it. Spiritually, suicide is not seen as a moral failure, but as a soul crisis. And in the aftermath is focused on healing. It's focused on reintegration. It's focused on understanding. It's focused on pulling the fragments that the perceived fragments together again. It is not judgment. I have to keep saying it. It is not punishment. It is not judgment. What happens in the moments after death? After death, the soul is immediately received by guides. You know, we talk about this idea of community. Mm-hmm. We talk about the idea of ancestors, and we talk about the idea of greater cloud of witnesses. The soul is immediately, the Catholic record shows that the soul is never left alone. And as soon as it leaves the body, guides, ancestors, healing beings surround the soul with calm, with compassion, and with love, with grounding energy, with love, immediately after leaving the body.
Barbara.
There is, yes, sir.
May I interrupt for a second, please?
Yes, sir.
An example of what you're talking about is, isn't it when people transition, they see those who've already transitioned before they leave?
Right.
When my mama transitioned, she saw her mama and she saw some of her siblings before she transitioned. So I want to say that because there are a lot of people who hear that, but they don't connect it necessarily connected to experiences that we've had, because for some reason we disconnect from those things. That's how Africans think, and that's what we have always believed. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. There is no hell, no punishment. There is no divine anger, only clarity and support. The soul often feels relief first after it's taken its own life. And as it leaves the body, it feels relief from all of this emotional pain that it's had, all this mental confusion, all this mental chaos, all this nervous system over anything, all the trauma loops that it has felt. It feels immediate relief. But this release is not a reward. It's not a reward for their having taken their life. It's not a reward, but it's the body, the suffering, the body releasing that suffering that it has been going through. This release, RELEASE, is then followed by REVIEW, life review. And that life review, sometimes, some people may have said that at the time that they're not necessarily just with suicide, but at the time of a death, like they're in an automobile and they're going over a cliff and they believe that they're going to die. They can see their life before them. They can see episodes of their life before their eyes, go like a movie or something similar to that. Just right, flashing right before their eyes. Well, this is the same or similar thing. There's relief, and there's life review. And the purpose of the review is not to shame the person. Don was talking about what happened with someone in the military, and and what he said and what he shared was, I think, even more than shame. It was compounding and heaping upon that individual negativity that he probably did not need at that point in time. But this life review is not to shame us, not to shame you, not to shame that person who's taken their own life. It's focused on emotional overload. The purpose of the review is to help you understand what led to the breaking point. And it shows all those instances, one after the other, from not only this lifetime, but previous lifetimes, what led to the breaking point. The purpose of the review is to help the soul understand which wounds were unhealed. What happened that was never healed. It helps the soul understand what support was missing. And it helps the soul understand what choices felt impossible. So the tone is not shaming. The tone is compassionate, not punitive. The soul is shown its own pain, not to judge it, but to help it heal. And it's designed to try to help it heal what it could not heal while in the body, while enfleshed. The soul then enters a healing realm, what feels like, or seems like a healing realm, and they often go to a specific place. When souls who die by suicide often go to a specific area. Because if you remember what we talked about, the life review helps you see wounds that were unhealed, support that was missing, choices that felt impossible. Similarly, going to this specific area is sort of like a hospital for the soul in a sense, if you want to see it that way. But it goes to this specific area, this specific space. Sometimes it's called a restoration space. And there they receive emotional rehabilitation. The vibrations are soothed. We talked about being out of alignment. Depression is a way of being out of alignment. Well, you're so out of alignment that you were driven to taking your own life. Well, those energies are soothed. There's deep soul rest healing of trauma that's carried from that life and even previous lives. It's similar, as I said, to a spiritual hospital for overwhelmed souls. It's an overwhelming of that consciousness that drives the soul to do this. But even then, the soul is not stuck. It's not stuck there. It just sometimes needs some time. It's not doomed, but it often needs more time to heal before it reincarnates. It needs support to rebuild its emotional body. It needs a rebalancing, if you will, of the threads, the karmic threads that connect it to its life and its relationships. It just needs it's like refining and regenerating and restoring and healing the soul. Again, this is not punishment. I can't say that enough. It is not punitive. It is wholeness work. WHOLENESS. It's wholeness work. Suicide doesn't create bad karma. Instead, it creates lessons that the soul might choose to revisit in a different lifetime, in a gentler lifetime, in a lifetime where there are more supports, in a lifetime where there's less disconnection, and in a lifetime where imprints like fear and imprints like hopelessness and imprints like disconnection have the social support to sustain it so that it can continue on its purpose, its sole purpose in whatever that lifetime is. So it is not punitive. The soul might reincarnate as a life where it has stronger emotional supports, where it learns resilience, and has in a more stable environment. It has similar themes to work through, but it also has the tools and the compassion. This restoration period gives it more tools to work with in the next iteration of life. It is not punishment. I keep saying that. It is not punishment. It's a chance to finish what was too painful to complete in the lifetime it exited from. So, next, how does the soul feel after death? After healing, the soul often experiences several kinds of things. A deep remorse. What is the first thing? A deep remorse. Not guilt, a deep remorse, a sadness that it couldn't stay longer, that it couldn't complete what it needed to complete, that what it wanted to complete, that it couldn't complete more, that it couldn't express its true light. This remorse is not condemning, though, and I'm purposefully saying not punitive, not punishment, not condemnation, not righteous indignation. It is none of that stuff. It is gentle and not condemning. The soul after death understands and sees clearly the pain it carried. It sees clearly the distortion in the perceptions that it had. It sees clearly a lot of times it may be a lack of self-love. whatever. The soul at this point then sees clearly. Remember, we were talking about the guides that are with the soul, and in this restorative place, while the soul is receiving that rest, it's also receiving more of the tools that it needs, and the supports that it needs carry forth its purpose in the next iteration of its life. The soul desires growth. So we've talked about after death, there's deep remorse, but there's understanding, and there's a desire for growth. And most souls eventually want to return to earth to continue that contract that they had with more strength. Most souls who take their own lives after being restored, after the rest, after being assisted and comforted through the soul crisis, want to continue and complete, quote unquote, my words, the mission. What does the soul want the loved ones to know? Souls who die by suicide often send messages like, I wasn't weak. Doesn't that speak to what Don was talking about when the fellow was told that you're weak? The soul often sends messages that say, I wasn't weak, I was overwhelmed. I didn't want to die. I wanted the pain to stop. Please don't blame yourself. That's what the soul would want the loved one to know. Please don't blame yourself. I'm healing. I'm still here. They want their loved ones to know they're safe, that they're at peace, that they're not suffering in the way that people fear they're suffering. It's none of that. So in terms of an insight to pull this all together then, those who in their own life are not judged, they are held. Those who in their own life are not punished, they are restored. Souls who in their own life are not damned, but deeply loved. The act of suicide of the soul is a signal of the soul being overwhelmed, not a spiritual failure. And I have to be clear, it is not a spiritual failure. The aftermath is a journey of healing. It's a journey of remembrance. It's a journey of returning to life.
Ms. Barbara, may I interject something right quick?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Barbara, I think you're doing a wonderful job, and I don't differ with you in what you're saying, just bringing another side to it. I don't think that there's a penalty for someone who unalives themselves. Yet I do think it is a penalty with me now when I elect to give up and not put forth an effort in something. And that's about the closest thing to suicide that I can get to when I elect not to put forth an effort into making myself better. And I do think there are penalties that come with when I hear that little voice, somebody, George, you done all you can. It's time for you to give up. So if a person unalives themselves, I don't think that there's a penalty in that. Yet, only with me now, not for no one else. When I elect not to put forth an effort in something to make a situation better, I do think that there's a penalty for that. Thank you.
Thank you, George. And I see what you're saying, but I think we're talking about the two different levels we're talking about. When we know better, we should do better. when we
Miss
understand
Barbara,
better,
can I kind of speak to what George was saying? Because I kind of think where he's going. Because
okay.
I mean, we all know people who are walking around who have committed suicide, but not killed themselves yet, or not. You know what I'm saying? Like people who have
Yeah.
like literally given up on life, and like they just hadn't found the means to an end yet. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, because like we were talking about a family member, and they're ready to go. Like they just want to leave here, but they just hadn't found a avenue, resource to do it yet. You know what I'm saying? Like they've just given up, and they're walking around here, but they still and I mean a lot of people who actually commit suicide way before they do it, they've already given up on life way before they actually decide to do it. You know what I mean? And I kind of think that's kind of where George is going. Like it may not get to that extreme for some people that they may not even go through with it. But a lot of people, they started what George is talking about before it ever gets to, oh, I'm going to go out here and do something to myself. They're right there where George is talking about.
Thank you very much. I hear what you're saying, and that's where we come into play as well. I got you, Pastor. That's where we come into play. We've got to learn to forgive ourselves, regardless. That therein is the part of the lesson in this, that it doesn't have to end in unaliving yourself. That when we learn to forgive ourselves, remember we have this. We live in this polarity, and we don't always get it right. We don't always do right. That's the point. But the more aware we are of who we are, the more we try to walk therein, walk in that experience of Elohim. But if we fall short, we got to learn to forgive ourselves. We got to understand that it is not an unforgivable sin that we don't forgive ourselves. It is not an unforgivable sin that we didn't do what we were supposed to do, so we're going to go to hell. We can't let these external things tell us that there's nothing to us. We pick ourselves up, understanding who we are. I fell short of that target. Next time, I will strive to hit it. I fell short of the goal. Next time, I will strive to hit it. So there are things that we can do and talk to ourselves and talk to each other, too, when we feel these shortcomings, so that we don't have to get to the point where we feel like, well, there's nothing left. There's nobody who cares. I'm just going to unalive myself. So there are options for us well before, potentially, we get to that point. Pastor?
Yes, let's face it. Suicide is unaliving yourself. And we're talking about it in a physical sense. If you are still breathing, you may be depressed, angry with yourself, hate yourself, but you have not unalived yourself. So that is not really suicide until you do that. If we want to look at it spiritually, when you know who you are, when you hear who you are and it resonates deeply with you, and you decide that you're going to stick with religion instead of learn more about who you are, you have committed spiritual suicide. So dying by suicide is simply a physical act. And that's just the colloquial understanding of suicide. Whether it's Webster Dictionary, everywhere you go, that's it. So let's not philosophize it. Let's be real about what it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just comment, please? Because George was saying he feels like there are penalties in this life, and there are in this life. I wouldn't necessarily call it penalties, but there are consequences to actions, thoughts, ideas. There are consequences for things that we do or thoughts that we have in this realm, on this plane. So, I mean, you can term it as a penalty, but really it's not a penalty, it's just a natural consequence of whatever is happening because of the way energies work. But when you're in the realm of spirit, there is no penalty, there is no anything except I can't think of the word I want. There's this unconditional love. That's what I want. In the spiritual realm, there's just only unconditional love. That's it.
Audrey, what you are speaking is exactly the heart of God, the heart of the Creator. That's who we must be when we embrace the reality that we are. We are Elohim, unconditional love, period. I can't wait to talk about how we forgot who we are, because everything that we've said, everything that Barbara's talked about, that ends up in a state of depression or with the thought of unaliving yourself, none of those are in our memory bank. All of that is learned behavior. And when we talk about how to be, how to walk, how to think in terms of who we are, I'm hoping that someone will remember that and raise that question, because we have never been that person. We've been taught to be that person. And Christianity taught us to be depressed. Christianity taught us that suicide is acceptable, even though at the same time it was telling us, you're going to hell. Christianity told us we're going to hell for so many different things. We said we believed it, but we didn't know we were going to hell for anything or not, including suicide. Because everything that we did that Christianity did not agree with was sending you to hell. And the ones who were telling you that was on their way to hell based upon what they were saying. So anyway, I'm done.
It's interesting that Christianity teaches that, because in the Apocrypha, there's the book of Adam and Eve, and it basically tells the story of Adam and Eve after they've left the garden. And I was just amazed reading it, because several times Adam got so frustrated that he walked up on a mountain and just threw himself off the mountain and died. And then God would come along and say, "Get up,
What's wrong with you?
go try again. Just go home, try again." So if that book is included in the Catholic Bible, and it basically illustrates that God was not punishing Adam for killing himself, or he just told him, "Okay, get up, try again, go about your business, try again." Why would they teach something then different? I guess it's just manipulation and control.
Well, they didn't understand it. What I'm saying is that is simply that's a metaphor, telling us,
It is, but
no matter how many times you fall, get up. And even if you unalive yourself, guess what? Get up. You got another shot at it.
But isn't that
Exactly.
kind of like how like Christianity has always taught us to like just suffer because your reward is not on this earth. So suffer all you can and just wait, because in heaven you're gonna get your reward.
Well, that's what Christianity taught us, because Christianity was telling us your reward is not here in these gold mines in Africa. Your reward is in heaven, but our reward is in these gold mines here. That was to teach us to be what to be
You're obedient, you work yourself to
obedient.
death,
Yes,
then
be
you get your
obedient.
reward.
Yes, yeah. Literally work yourself to death to get me my reward. And when I work you to death, you go get yours. That's it. That's what, but that was never who we are. Anyway, I'm done.
Barbara, I have a question.
Go.
This is Evelyn family. I see the penalty as the person coming back to complete their lessons here, because we all have an assignment when we come, and we do feel overwhelmed sometimes when we take our own life, we unalive ourselves. And to me, the penalty is you got to go back. Yes, when we cross over, our loved ones are there, the ancestors, source. They love us and they say, okay, we understand, we see, but you got to go back. To me, that's what I see the penalty as. Thank you.
In response to that, Evelyn, I didn't say
But
that.
in a new life, wouldn't we go back anyway, though? I'm saying, like, you're going to go back anyway to complete the work of the soul, even, right?
But I don't see that as penalty. I
It's
see
not a
that as
penalty.
opportunity.
Well, I mean, I'm saying the same thing that would have happened anyway happened, just maybe sooner. Because if we have other lifetimes and we're reincarnating, like, you're going to reincarnate anyway, regardless of how you leave. So that wouldn't, to me, that wouldn't be a punishment, because it's the same outcome that would have happened anyway.
May I speak to that?
But I see it also as not a penalty, but an opportunity.
Well, I agree with you. There are no penalties. There is no punishment. The only punishment that we get is when we believe what the church tells us about punishment, or when we punish ourselves. There is no such thing as punishment spiritually. If it were, then there would be a hell.
Well, let me say this, because I didn't
Can I
say
speak to that too?
Hold on a moment, brother. Hold on, Don. Let me say this. I want y'all to know I did not say punishment. We were using the word penalty. Yes. Let's get that straight. Okay.
It's not a
Penalty. And then I know. I didn't want to use the word penalty, but because we were talking about that, I don't see it as a penalty. So, but I just use that word because I don't feel it's one. It's just that it's something that we have to come back and do over again. That's all. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Okay, what I was gonna say, I had called Pastor earlier today, and I'm not gonna take us off, Pastor, I promise. But in Kabbalah, it's a term called tukin, and it translates to correction. And then they consider it the path of correction, where every being that comes on this planet has a path. And no matter what they do, if they live and they die, they still gonna have to continue this path, because it's stuff that based on your family and all kind of stuff that you have to correct to be here. And as far as what we've learned is the Creator's only desire is for us to find out who we are and to walk in it. And so, how many ever lifetimes it takes you to get to walking in the fullness of who you are, If it takes 100, if it takes 10, if you decide to unalive yourself today, when you come back, whenever you come back, you're still trying to find out yourself, because if you find out who you are, you have fully walked into it, and now you'll be like Enoch. If you fully walked into it, you walk until you were no more, and you get what I'm saying. And so when it comes to that, I think of, how many ever lifetimes it takes me to get here. And when it comes to suicide or whatever, they still have to finish those things, and whatever they have to learn, how many ever lifetimes it takes, until they get to realizing I am God and walk in it.
Thanks, Don. When I think about a soul not being able to hold the vibration, and having to be released from that vibration because it's so intense. You've heard when an opera singer reaches a certain pitch, it can be so high that it shatters the glass. That's what I think about when I think about a soul who's unalived itself, because one of the reasons is that the vibrations of what it's feeling is so intense. The density of this body, the flood of the vibrations of grief and rage and anger and whatever it's going through, it can't hold that. And so it needs to be restored. After it's unalived, it needs to be restored. And that's what happens. And I think Audrey summed it up when she said, and that's what all of this is saying to us. When I said no punishment, no righteous anger, no whatever. In the spiritual realm, there's just unconditional love. And it gets us ready for the next iteration of walking that walk, experiencing that experience of being Elohim until we do it. So thank you, Don. That really ties into what we're talking about in terms of you got a purpose. And sometimes it's said the soul can choose the lifestyle and the family, whatever that it wants to go in, because it wants these lessons. It wants to be and walk in the be that it is. It wants to do this. So it chooses that path, which gives it the challenges to overcome the challenges that it's had in the lifetime that it just left, or in the previous lifetime. I'm wondering what other people have felt as we talked about this.
Well, I will say this, and piggybacking off what Reverend Richard stated, suicide, to unalive ourselves, was never in us. And one reason why I would say that was never in us, by way of a Kabbalah, there was no hierarchy. In religion, there's always a hierarchy. And wherever there's a hierarchy, there's going to be some degree of a measuring stick or measuring ruler to put people in certain categories. So by way of a Kabbalah, the only hierarchy that we have is everything is always traced back toward the African American female or the black female or Kabbalah. So when you have and I do believe that the Catholic Church, Rev, you did say they didn't know what they were doing. I think they knew what they were doing. That's just my opinion. Yeah, like I say, when you have hierarchy, you have, just by definition alone, a hierarchy implements, and I'm paraphrasing, if someone can look it up, I greatly appreciate it. It's putting people in certain categories where you will have someone over you or someone beneath you. So I just wanted to add that part in based upon what Reverend Richard said that was not in us. And it's not in us just based on the Kabbalah. Tell me the hierarchy. Other than everything is traced back toward the female. That's our only hierarchy. Yet if you look at the Catholic Church, you got archbishops, bishops, cardinals, popes, bishop, district superintendent, minister, deacons, deaconess. So I just wanted to add that based upon what Reverend Richard said. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I see where you're coming from. It is this issue of religiosity and what we've been taught and what we've learned, what we've repressed and suppressed. Yeah, that brings us to not understanding fully who we are and not walking in that essence that we did in a Kabbalah. And so I can see where you're coming from with that.
I want to make sure I understand. I really appreciate this discussion the last couple of days, especially on depression, because I probably there more often than not, and I probably should be sometimes, I think, and I appreciate the help in that area. Other people that I encounter, I want to know how to help them. I want to know, and I think you've given me some tools to look at that. I'm not sure I understand the total things that I have available about suicide, though, and how would I deal with something like that if I encountered someone and you didn't have time, you had to deal with it yourself. You didn't have time to contact anybody.
Let me ask you something, Ron. Let me just follow up on what you just said. I think I hear you. One of the things that someone said earlier is that you're going to sin because there's no time to ask for forgiveness, and the person is going to go to hell.
Yeah.
You can be in an auto accident and just kill somebody the day before and not have time to ask for forgiveness. I mean, you can find other instances where there's something that someone has done and has not asked for forgiveness. And even if it's not unaliving themselves, perhaps they've died tragically and didn't have that time. Perhaps they were in an accident and were immediately put on a respirator, something like that, and were not conscious and still didn't have that time. That doesn't mean, to me, that doesn't mean that there's judgment per se immediately after they die.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing in a sense.
But can I say this? I kind of think that like the whole idea of judgment, that comes from religion as well.
Yeah.
Like we just think, oh, we getting ready to die and we getting ready to go stand in front of somebody and they gonna read off all our sins when you treated the woman across the street bad and stuff like that. Like we have been so, and like when we start to unpack this, the more we unpack it, the more we see how conditioned we have been and how conditioned we are to think. Like everything that we've been taught is to pull us farther away from the Creator and farther away from ourselves. I just wanted to say that.
If
Thank you, Don. We're seeing things through the lens of religion instead of allowing things to resonate and vibrate, and I feel like that's. Pastor, you said that in the next several months we're really going to be taken alive, and I believe with my being that this vibration and frequency idea of what resonates within us, not what's told to us, not what we process mentally, or what we see physically, but the resonance is going to be so important in bringing us to that place where we understand even more. And so the thing that I can offer is just don't try to process any of this. Don't process any of it. Don't try to process any of it. Trust that if you're put in a place where you have to support someone who's unalive themselves and their family needs a word of comfort, trust that the vibration and the resonance of what you need to say to them is going to give them comfort and not give them additional pain. Don't overlay the religious stuff on top of all of that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pastor.
I want to say something. And that's exactly what I was going to say, that we are processing through religious minds. We're not processing through ourselves. We're processing by the way we have been taught to process, and we're processing the things that we have been told. I'm sorry, the spiritual aspects of what we're talking about, but we're processing it through a religious mind, as opposed to, as Bob said, allowing it to resonate. And if it doesn't, it's okay. It's in you. The whole, if people were going to hell for suicide, how many of our ancestors would be in hell who unalived themselves on the ships or after they got here? How many of our people died by suicide because they could not carry that burden of slavery any longer? So if suicide was a forbidden thing, then our people would not have been dying by suicide. It was not, I'm tired of myself, I'm tired of me, I don't want to be here. That was not it. Every single person that I've ever spoken with about dying by suicide has said one thing, if nothing else: I just want the pain to stop. Whatever is leading them there, they want to change it. And the last thing I want to say is this: none of us know what we are going to say to someone if we come across them and that's what's on their mind. None of us know. The best counselors in the world don't know. Only thing you know is that you're in that space, but you have an advantage to most counselors. And the advantage that you have is that you know who you are. So is it anything or any words of comfort that God cannot bring to someone? When we think spiritually, when we think and process by who we are, we don't ask if we will be able to do something. We know that we can do all things because there is nothing too hard for God. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Can I also ask something else, sort of to what Ron was talking about? I mean, I definitely know what you said is true, and I would know what to say when it's time to say it. I have, talked with friends and people that have, various mental health issues, and like I'm feeling like as I'm hearing this and feeling this, it's feeling like, oh my God, you've wasted so much time on. I have not had, suicidal thoughts, but the depression part, like, it's feeling like to me, it's so much easier than I have made it. And that's a comforting feeling. But I have been told by people like that suffer from anxiety and depression, things like that. You say like, oh, just go outside and get some sunlight. Oh, just speak to yourself like if it was that easy, I would do it. So how do you approach it from the standpoint of not minimizing it? I guess just feeling it and trusting, I guess, is the way that you do that. But like in my head, it's feeling easy to me because of my time with y'all. But like it doesn't feel easy. Like tomorrow, it might not feel as easy as it's feeling like it is. You get what I'm saying? So how do you kind of convey it without minimizing?
Tonight, would you minimize it right now?
No,
Why?
it's not little. It's not a minimal
The
thing.
reason I'm asking you that, Kato, is because this is all about remembrance.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I'm not talking about remembering in the way that you remember academically.
Right.
I'm talking about the remembrance of the soul. It'll
Yeah.
come to you. Trust it. We have to learn how to process like God, because that's who we are. We have to learn to talk to ourselves and teach our minds to process like God. We have to learn to do that. And there is a methodology for doing that. It's something that some would do overnight and some will take longer and some may never. It depends on the depth of your desire as well as where your trust level is. And I don't like that word level, but trust, for lack of a better another term. I'm done.
Hey, Pastor, I was in that state, if you know what you just said, because it ain't. I'm gonna put it the way I understood it and the way I did it. I mean, word of God, man, I never reach your lip when you're talking to someone in that state of wanting to die. So, only thing when I told that I missing one leg. The man I talked to, he missing both legs, and he didn't want to live. He didn't want to hear nothing nobody was saying. He just, I mean, he wasn't a grown man, but he was a man because he maybe about 19 or 20, and he got both of his legs took off by a train. And he didn't want to be in this world half of a man, and people was talking to him and telling him, and he even had other nominations of church was talking to him and telling him about God and all this right there. He didn't want to hear that. And they were trying to get me to talk to him. I said, I ain't, I mean, how can I talk to that man? I mean, y'all don't done it. He's not going to hear me about telling him to live and everything going to be normal. It ain't going to be normal. It ain't nothing normal when you don't lost that much of your body. And I never would say anything to him. And he looked and saw me, and he saw me, he had but one. And he came to me. How you feel being a man with partial, your body's gone? And I didn't know what to say at that time. I just told him, I know that it looked gloom now, but I know that I'll walk again. And I said, I know they told me I know I'll walk again and be a vegetable, but I'm not standing on that. I'm just standing on knowing I'm going to walk again. And he looked. Then he left. Then he came back to me again secretly and talked to me. I said, look, it's this way, man. I said, you are both legs. Life don't stop there. Once you get your legs again and try to walk, have your mind made up to walk, I said, thing will change with you. And I say, you never know what you will be able to do until you try. Laying there and wallowing in your pity, wallowing in your, just wallowing, I say your soul still lives. Everything about you is missing physically, but your soul still have everything attached. Everything is in your mind. You get beyond what everybody's trying to tell you and believe for yourself. There's nothing you can't do. And I said, with two legs, I said, you might beat me. I said, two false legs, you might beat me dancing with this one. He fell out laughing. But I got him through that. I didn't get him through it by preaching God, preaching the Bible to him. They were doing that, and they wasn't helping him. I just told him for real. And that's it. I mean, it ain't nothing going to come to you to give to that person. You got to start off with where he at. Right then, how he feeling.
And that's
it.
That in itself is saying to all of us, you don't know until that happens. And sometimes you don't say anything. And that's the best thing to do. But thank you, Charles, for sharing. And I do believe that where we are with this is going to prepare us for what we're headed towards. And we'll talk about that later. I'm done. Barbara Jean?
I'm done. We talked about. There's a lot to think about over the last several days. So I will give everyone that space to do that if they so desire.
Before we conclude, just based on what Mr. Charles stated, the significance of what he said was simple. It was his confidence that aided that young man. And in being creators, and I can only speak of myself, when I go to different Walmart DCs, more people know me than I know them. And I attribute that to my confidence. I speak to people. Hey, what's happening, hero? What's happening, shero? And more than not, I get some kind of interaction, even if it was just a smile. Hey, welfare driver, how you doing? Doing a whole lot better now that I see you. So, in being a creator, your confidence can help you push any narrative. My confidence, I can push feminine energy. I can push femininity, just based on my confidence. So the significance in what Mr. Charles stated was his confidence aided that individual. All of our confidence should aid some situation that when they see you coming, something gonna happen. It's gonna be better. It's gonna be more easier. You should be able that when people see you, you're gonna take the difficulty out of it and make it more simpler. So, my confidence aids humanity, and I think it aids in depression. To get a person to smile just by speaking to them, acknowledging them. Hey, that's a good fragrance you got on today. What's it called? And I have to do that because I get that when Bernard Cooper,
I think,
a.k.a. Monica.
George.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. I think we get a bit out there because we're talking about suicide as opposed to instilling someone's confidence in them. Just because someone doesn't have confidence doesn't mean that they want to die by suicide. So I do believe that at some point when we come back together in recapping this, to tie suicide and depression together will probably make it more palatable or easier to understand and resonate much deeper. But again, as Barbara said at the onset, if it doesn't resonate, if you don't feel it, it's okay. It doesn't mean that it's not in you. It simply means that you didn't experience it at that moment. But it's there. I'm done.
I'm done, Ron.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Beatles. Very well done. Lot to think about. And I do. I feel lighter, especially about depression. I can see that.
Ashe.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Well,
I just going to say, see you guys Saturday.
okay. Yeah. See you guys Saturday. Hope you have a great week. Okay. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.